And then we're going to transition on into some ancillary topics in exercise prescription. All right, so let's cruise into set progression. So training sets should transition from a warm-up load to a working set load. And what I'm really getting here to, what I'm really getting to here is that exercise prescription should follow a pattern of building up to a specific workload. And what that means and what we're getting to is you don't want to just start someone out and say, okay, I want you to do 3 sets of 5 at 85% of your max. And you just load up the bar and get them into it. We need warm-up loads. We need movement prep. We need some type of exercises previous to work that individual up to that working set load. So if you're working sets, if you want to have an individual do 3 sets of 5 at a working load at 85%, you might actually have 6 sets of 5 prescribed. One set 1 might be 50% for 5, set 2 might be 60%, set 3 might be 70%, and then set 4, they're at 85%. But training sets should transition from a warm-up load to the working set load throughout the course of someone's training session. So an example here is using RPE. As I talked about before, set 1, 6 out of 10, set 2, 7 out of 10, set 3, 8 out of 10. Okay, so progressing in intensity each set. All right, and then tempo. So tempo is something that's gaining a lot of popularity in the training realm. So tempo, what is tempo? And why would we use tempo is another good question as well. So tempo just basically manipulates the speed of which you move throughout different portions of a lift. So the first number in tempo here, this represents the eccentric phase. So this is the lowering phase, or as the muscle is lengthening. So let's use a squat, for example. That's why I said lowering would be a 3-second eccentric lowering. Okay, so 3 seconds down, 3, 2, 1, you're now at the bottom of a squat. Okay, the second number is a pause at the sticking point. You can think about this as the 90-degree joint flexion point, but this basically is the bottom of the movement. Wherever this individual bottoms out or end range, there is the pause. So second number is a pause. So this is a 1-second pause. Third number is the concentric or muscle shortening. This would be the way up from a barbell back squat. And the fourth number is the pause at the top of a lift. So what tempo does is it provides a lot of instruction into how the athlete should move. So a lot of people when they lift and train would just go through the motions, aka, okay, I have a set of 10, down and up, down and up, down and up, and so on. But if you manipulate tempo, so tempo can increase or manipulate the time under tension that an individual has, and it also can add purpose to power as well. So it can add some specificity and purpose to training. So you can see the X here, the third variable in the sequence. So the X stands for move as fast as you can. So this individual in this specific tempo would be lowering themselves slowly for 3 seconds, pausing for a second at the bottom, and then having an all-out acceleration to back to the top of the lift, and immediately going back into another eccentric portion, 3 seconds down and back up. Let's say it's for 5 repetitions. Okay, so what we know about muscle hypertrophy, there's really 3 ways to stimulate muscular hypertrophy in a general sense. You can either apply a lot of tension to the muscle, aka a lot of shear tension, strength training. You can increase an individual's time under tension or their volume, or you can apply a bioenergetic stress and demand. Okay, so what you can do with tempo is you can really manipulate the time under tension. You can, for example, this set that a person would do, if they did 5 repetitions here with 3 seconds down, 1 second pause at the bottom, and let's say it takes another second for them to get to the top, that's a 5-second repetition. Whereas in somebody just going down and up, right, maybe it's 2 seconds, 1 second down, 1 second up, and so on. So you can manipulate the time under tension to improve the hypertrophic adaptation, improve someone's muscle size through tempo training. All right. There are a lot of different set types that are included in the Everfit platform. Primarily, there's 4. So you have the warm up, also known as movement prep. So you can allocate a exercise to be a warm up set, and that will let your client or individual know that this is just a warm up set. Or it's also known as movement prep. That might be for a bench press, for example, some push ups or something similar. Okay. The next set type that you have is a regular or working set. These are sets prescribed to elicit desired responses. So these are really those sets that you're pre-programming and allocating specific workloads to, let's say 85% of 1RM, because you want to improve this individual's strength. Okay. Something else that's really common in the kinesiology realm is called a drop set. So a drop set is used to increase power output and can cause neurological and psychological adaptations. So a drop set is basically when you build up to a heavy weight. So let's say you're building up, or whatever weight it might be, and the following set you drop weight from the bar. So you drop weight. Let's say you built up to a 500-pound back squat, and you're going to drop this individual back down to 315, just 3 plates on the bar. Okay. What's going to happen when that individual gets under the bar? Basically, the nervous system and the physiology of the nervous system is going to assume that the same load, relatively the same load, is on the bar. So acetylcholine and calcium and all sorts of these chemicals that are involved in the central nervous system process and activation process of the nervous system are going to accumulate and be in that area that's going to activate the muscle fibers in the legs. Basically, it's going to be stoked. It's going to be totally psyched. And what will happen when you pop the bar off, it'll feel pretty light. When you get to the bottom of the squat and go to accelerate upward, your neurological system is going to kind of kick into overdrive, and you'll have a really, really powerful drive up from the bottom. So drop sets are used to increase power output. Drop sets are also used to increase volume in a training session, because we know that an individual's bar speed is directly associated to how many reps in reserve they can do. AKA, in other words, as people are training, let's say bench press to failure, the last couple sets, or last couple repetitions, they're gonna really slow down. And as the bar speed slows, that's directly associated with how many reps in reserve that individual has left. So by doing a drop set, if you can increase the bar speed in the first couple repetitions, you might increase their volume also at that working load. Okay, so lots of reasonings and rationale behind using drop sets. But again, it's just working up to a relatively heavier load and then dropping the weight to get that feeling. And then the last set type is failure set. So sets to failure I think should be used sparingly and always require a spotter. However, they can be used for auto-regulation and testing throughout program design. So failure sets I don't think should be something that are used all the time in every single training session throughout all the sets. However, if you're going to include one set to failure, let's say they're doing bench press 5 sets of 5 on the very last set, if you're going to allow them to open up in what's called a open set, do as many repetitions as you can with the last prescribed weight, that will allow you to see their growth pattern and how much strength that they're putting on, right? And again, as we talked about being an educated coach practitioner, if you're noticing that it's been 8 weeks in a relatively untrained or moderately trained population and they're not getting a lot stronger, that's when it's time to really reconsider what type of training stimulus that they're under, really consider the training load, how you're testing your athletes, and so on, to adapt on the fly and be sure to optimize the functional capacity improvements that you're going to be delivering to your clientele. Okay, so some other important ancillary topics. We have progression and regression. So progression and regression. So basically, anytime that you prescribe an exercise to someone, you always want to think about a progression and regression. And reason being is that basically you want to have a harder exercise on deck as well as an easier exercise on deck, because you want the athlete or individual, right? So if you prescribe something that doesn't go as planned, or it's too easy for them, or it's too hard for them, you want to be able to have something in your pocket that's basically the same movement, right? Or same movement, but slightly different load, or take weight off the bar, or whatever that is. So a good example of this would be if you prescribe somebody let's say like a mini side plank with abduction. So they're on their side in the side plank position, the bottom leg's bent, and they're lifting their top leg up and down off the ground. And for one individual in, let's say it's a group class or one client, you prescribe them the same program, it's too easy. Okay, let's get into a full plank position, so a full side plank with abduction, increase the intensity, that's a progression. Let's say X athlete is having a hard time with that movement, you can regress the movement by having them lay all the way down onto their side, head is basically resting on the arm, and now they're going through abduction from a side lying position without having to stabilize through the plank. Okay? So having a progression or regression on deck is critical. Everfit also has space for alternate exercises. So the reason to prescribe alternate exercises, this might be based on equipment, injury history, or preferences. And a good example here is barbell front squat to a goblet squat. So let's say, for example, in your programming, you have you want to train someone in their squatting pattern, specifically if anterior chain loaded squatting pattern. However, you prescribe it to this individual and they've been going to a gym, but they're traveling. The travel gym that they're at doesn't have barbell. Okay, so you can have in your program design alternate exercise for goblet squat. Therefore, they know, okay, no worries. I'm just going to grab a 60-pound dumbbell, hold it by the sides, and I'll go through this front squat movement. This will still load the movement, but it'll be an alternate exercise based on their equipment. They might also have an injury history. For example, a lot of people get injured deadlifting. They might not want to do a bilateral barbell deadlift, but they might be open to doing a single leg RDL with a kettlebell or something similar. Okay, and also preferences as well. So having an alternate exercise on deck is also really critical for effective program design. Okay, and let's also get into some other set types. So we're in our ancillary topics in program design. So supersets. Supersets are really, really popular. Superset essentially is two sequentially performed exercises that stress two opposing muscles or areas. Okay, so a superset is the agonist, the primary mover, okay, and the antagonist. So a really, really easy way to think about this is a bicep and tricep. Doing a, let's say, a barbell bicep curl and a cable tricep extension with a rope. Okay, doing them one after another is considered a superset because you're training the agonist, primary mover, and the antagonist, the opposite. Okay, a compound set is when you prescribe two sequentially performed exercises that stress the same muscle group. Something that I see this in sometimes an easy way to think about this is, for example, we have two bicep heads or we have two hamstring heads, right? Having different changes in the rotation of the arm, forearm, or the femur and lower limb can change the mechanics of which muscle is training. So for example, to make it really simple, a compound set might be doing bicep curls followed by a hammer curl, right? It's the same muscle group, possibly different biomechanical load, okay, but you're compounding on that same muscle group. That's a compound set. And then we have giant sets or quadruplex. So a giant set is usually a group of 3 or 4 exercises, and then quadruplex is really taken over in the functional training realm. But this is usually when you're grouping 4 exercises combined into one circuit style training. Something that I do a lot with my athletes that are in this type of training program is an upper body, lower body, single leg balance and core exercise as a circuit. So let's say, for example, they're doing an upper body, again, to keep it really simple, just upper body bench press, lower body barbell squat, single leg balance. Let's say it's doing some single leg RDLs with the airplane, so opening up, and then Russian twist for core. Something really simple, but you can circuit through these movements. And the good thing about thinking about giant sets or quadruplex training is that you can keep individuals really, really active without taxing and challenging the same muscle group. So you can tax somebody's upper body, have them immediately walk over into a preset up lower body station, have them from that lower body go into an unloaded single leg balance type exercise, and then wrap up with core. By the time that they finish this entire circuit, right, after they go through lower body, single leg, and core, their upper body will most likely be almost recovered. So that way they can hop right into it. So this is really good for weight loss clients as well, to be able to get a lot of volume. Or if you're in a personal training setting, when you're doing sessions every 50 minutes, right, you only have 10 minutes on the hour, how am I going to get in a big training stimulus? So this type of circuit training, giant sets at quadruplex training, are really, really effective considerations as well.